the Hall of Fame edition of One Cardinal, One Cub, and One Beer. We do not have our voice of reason. I've heard through the grapevine that he is nursing a cold of some sort. So, Maxwell, hope you get better. Very excited. We got a great panel coming on later on in the show. I want to start off by asking you to like us on Facebook, and you can contact us through onecard1cup1beer@gmail.com. You can always support our efforts through Patreon. You go to patreon.com, just search One Cardinal, One Cup, and One Beer, and you can support our efforts. We're so appreciative of that. Do want to update you on the Guess the Cubby. The gentleman I had behind me last week, I thought was going to be a little tough. But Mark Marianello, once more.
He's on a roll.
Herman Franks, who caught for the Cubs in the 50s, I believe, and managed the Cubs in the 70s. A couple stints with the Cubs. He was the Cub there. So far, Mark Marianello has 5 tallies. Tom Bichet has 2. Cooterlev and Mike Buchanan each have 1. And remember, you're trying to collect tallies here, and this will go on till the end of spring training. And the person with the most tallies at the end of spring training, they're going to win our prize package that includes some cups, drinking stuff, shirt stuff. But you do get 2 tickets to a Cardinal game or a Cub game, depending on which one you want. So continue to contact us, do the email. You can direct message us. You can put a comment somewhere on YouTube or on our one of our podcast sites. But the first one that we can verify that came in first, that's who gets the tally. So
right.
Pretty excited about that. JJ, how are you doing?
Really good. We had a nice storm Sunday night, Monday morning. So I've pretty much been staying in over the weekend and watched a lot of amazingly, I go on YouTube and watch a lot of White Sox baseball games. I love old Harry Carey when he was calling the games. Oh,
Look at that.
Hey, all right.
The White Sox City Connect jersey. I'm wearing it.
Man, I like you. You had Cincinnati last week and you got the White Sox this week. Very cool. I'm wearing the Texas Ranger out of respect for Adrian Beltran, who, as we will talk about, went into the Hall of Fame today, and I was a big fan of his. So congratulations.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about it.
Sure.
We have Beltray, we have Todd Helton, we have Joe Mauer, and we also have Jim Leland going in. What do you think about the class?
Very nice class. That's going to be a nice Hall of Fame induction next year. Leland, old salty manager. I love him. I always think of him with the Pittsburgh Pirates and getting on to Barry Bonds, a very classic moment. I got a Joe Mauer card here. One of those guys that played his whole career with one team. He's from Minnesota, 3 batting titles. Fantastic. First ballot Hall of Famer. We have, like I said, Beltran, and I only have Dodger cards I could find before we started doing the thing tonight. But I was down in Texas, and they really started revving up the statistics and how great a player he was. Not that he needed it, because in my book, I did a lot of research. I think he might be the 3rd greatest third baseman that ever existed, and there's not a whole lot of third basemen in there. 18 third basemen now with Beltran. That's 19 third basemen in there, and of course, Todd Helton. And I have a couple cards of Todd Helton as well right there, and quarterback for the Tennessee football team as well.
Yeah.
Yes. So
now, Beltray had a weird career. He started with the Dodgers, and they gave up on him kind of early and shipped him to Seattle, where he was kind of in obscurity.
Yeah.
And then he went to Texas, and he was relatively in obscurity there too, because they're just not high-profile teams. He did go to 2 World Series with the Rangers, but he was one of those players that he kind of reminded me of Hank Aaron. Not that he hit a bunch of home runs like Aaron did, but it's like one day in the early 70s, everybody woke up and said, hey, this Aaron guy from Milwaukee, he just might catch Ruth. And nobody could believe it. And it's like one day we all woke up and boy, Adrian Beltre, he's gonna get 3,000 hits pretty soon. Man, that's an automatic ticket to the Hall of Fame. He kind of did it under the radar. But think about it, if he would have stayed with the Dodgers with that high profile, my gosh, he would be on commercials everywhere.
Yeah, they did give up on him. And if you look at his stats from 29, because usually you can see like Acuna Jr., you can see how every year he's just getting better and better and putting up these incredible numbers. He put up nice numbers, but it wasn't earth shattering. And the Dodgers let him go. But he really didn't hit his stride till he hit about 30 years old. And from then on, he was on fire. And I've got some stats here. As far as WAR, he is fifth all time behind Schmidt, Eddie Matthews. Oh, I'm sorry, he's third behind Schmidt and Eddie Matthews, who I do think are the two greatest third basemen that ever lived. And then Wade Boggs is right behind him, and then George Brett. So if you're in that company right there and played that many years, that's pretty amazing. And in almost every statistic, there's only a couple Hall of Famers ahead of him. And like batting average, it's only Boggs and Brett that are ahead of him as for batting average as a third baseman. That's a very tough defensive. I mean, that's a very tough position. Sometimes with those screaming line drives down there, the hot corner, you're kind of taking your life in your own hand. He also was a great hitter. And Vince, one thing I remember about him so much is I seen a lot of times he would go down to one knee when he's swinging and hit a ball that was kind of, a sinker that was going out of the strike zone. He'd knock it out of the park, you know? And he hated his head being touched. They'd always take the helmet off and everybody touch his head and he starts swinging in the dugout and stuff like that. But he was a team leader. A lot of players, I do think on that team, he was the star of that team. He was the star of those Ranger teams through those years. So congratulations. That's a great story.
Well, I liked the Mauer. I talked about how I had him at number 5, the top catchers I've seen in my lifetime. So I'm really good with that. And Helton has pretty severe splits.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to penalize the guy for playing. It's not his fault that he played in Coors. I think he's certainly deserving. And the other two guys who are kind of on the outside looking in, Wagner, who I think will get in next year. I think next year's his last year of eligibility. And I just know there was a few years where he was just so good. And I mean, he had a long career of greatness, but there was a couple years where he was certainly at the top. And the other is Gary Sheffield, and I think there's just some issues that he's had with his personality and I rush with steroids. I should have researched this, but anyway, he's kind of got the Dick Allen issue going on there. There's some
comparison.
personal things there that is keeping him out, even though statistically he should be in.
He moved around a lot too. Sheffield, it seems like he was on a lot of teams, and sometimes he was on teams that weren't very good at the time, and you really didn't see him all the time. But when you look back at all the statistics, and when the Cardinals played him, that was a guy you didn't want to face. He was intimidating. He had that bat waggling, and man, they talked about bat speed. That's one of those things when they talk about this guy's got great bat speed. You hear him, people compare, oh, he's got Gary Sheffield bat speed. It's kind of like, an adjective now as how good he was of a hitter.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw this, being I've got my City Connect for the White Sox. And for those of you who watch this from Chicago, I know that no Cub fan in Chicago is going to wear a White Sox stuff. But I'm not a Cub fan in Chicago. I'm a Cub fan in Illinois or in Missouri. Cub fan in Illinois. I'm a Cub fan in Missouri and St. Louis. So the rivalry between the Cubs and the White Sox was really nothing I ever faced. So that's why I love the White Sox, but hate the Cardinals. So I don't hate them, just joking. But the White Sox, there's been rumblings that they've been talking about moving out to the suburbs, and then there's been rumblings that they've been in discussions with the mayor of Nashville. The latest news is that there's, I think it's 62 acres of undeveloped area, and it is right by the downtown area. And I've seen the renderings. If they put the stadium there, there's enough room to put not just a stadium there, but to make a whole ballpark village type thing. And with that background being the Chicago skyline, it's beautiful. That is a moneymaker. That is something where newer generations of people who in Chicago grow up say, you know what? We can go to Wrigley or we can go to the White Sox field because they're both awesome atmospheres, awesome places to go. Right now, you don't find Cub fans saying, hey, let's go to US Cellular or whatever they're calling it nowadays, old or new Comiskey. Let's go there because it's a very generic stadium and not a tremendously good part of town. But if they move this and kind of get that South Side Chicago blue collar image shed a bit and say, hey, this is a family atmosphere you can bring your kids to. This is a place where you and your buddies can come. This is a place where you go to a game and then spend the afternoon in the amenities that we have around here. Then that's going to be good. And that would keep the White Sox in Chicago. So I'm hoping that goes through. Have you heard anything about that?
Just what you have, and on Pardon the Interruption, they were talking about that. I believe the White Sox are one of those teams, one of those anchors. Even though they haven't won as many World Series as some other teams, just the history, and you got to keep the White Sox. I hope Nashville gets an expansion team down the line. That would be nice, but the White Sox have to stay in Chicago. Now, as a outsider, I was in the Navy up at Great Lakes, Illinois, and I would come down, take the train, and then I would go to Wrigley, but I'd also go to Comiskey, old Comiskey, and I've been to the new Comiskey one time, and I love old Comiskey. It was old, but all that history and everything. But Vince, I didn't know that wasn't. I thought all that was Chicago, downtown. I guess you're talking about like where all the, where everything's happening. It seemed
The
more like
business section, yeah.
Oh, okay. Because I think of Wrigley too, like a neighborhood, although it ain't a neighborhood anymore. At one time, it was all houses around it. Well, now it's bars and they've got a whole thing, which is great. I think for the fans, it's great. Don't get me wrong there. But I remember just getting off the train and walking through neighborhoods, and all of a sudden I seen the lights for Wrigley, and I come around the corner and there it was. But I took the train out to where Comiskey was, and you're right. The new one is a very generic stadium, and there's not much. They got those pinwheels still from the old days, but and they honor some of the old players with some poster kind of things hanging down. But other than that, it's probably one of the, besides Oakland, kind of my least favorite stadium, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, that and Tampa. I would rather watch a game in Oakland than Tampa. So,
well, that is true.
A few transactions. The Pirates signed Aroldis Chapman, thus taking him out of the Cubs plans, but I don't think they really ever had plans for him. He actually had a pretty good bounce back season. He did pretty good. The peripherals are still there. He's still throwing hard, striking out a lot of people, but he's walking a lot more people. He is showing some signs of deterioration, but he's still an effective pitcher. Astros got the big fish as far as closers go. They signed Josh Hader, 5 years, $95 million.
What about that bullpen? That bullpen is, I'm telling you what, that's a three-headed monster. This is going to be like the Nasty Boys coming at you.
It's almost like the Astros have said, okay, I see what you did, Los Angeles. Hold my beer. So
Yeah.
uh, the Yankees, they trade third baseman Tyler Nevin back to Baltimore for cash. Excuse me, the Tigers do. And I only bring that up because Tyler Nevin, he's not hit much in the majors. I think he's got like a low 200s batting average. But I've always found it weird that in today's day and age, they still trade people for cash. You know, you're not he's not worth a player, but here's 600,000. You want 600,000? Yeah, we'll take it. So I just found that a little strange. Yankees signed Luke Weaver.
Oh, all
Yeah.
right. Yeah, wish
The
him well.
Giants signed Jordan Wicks, so he's doing good out there.
Now,
The
did you
Angels,
did you hear that part of that is he wants to try to be a starter.
yeah, they're going to stretch him out to be a starter.
He tried that in
So
St. Louis and it just it wasn't successful, but I wish him well. And they got him, so let's see what happens.
I hope he does well too. Seems to be a very likable guy.
Yeah.
His statistics have not matched up to his stuff. They've been good, but as a closer, which he has been, when you're throwing 105, you think you'd
Yeah.
be lights out. You would be Mariano Rivera, but he's had some he's had some hiccups now and then as a closer. So maybe a starter is going to suit him better. The Angels sign Robert Stevenson, who was probably a better fit for the Cubs than Chapman or Hader. Um, but he's going to the Angels to that show. So that's the only really major transactions. So what's going on in Cardinal land?
Well, we've had a lot of news this week. It's been a busy week here in St. Louis land. Adam Wainwright is going to do some commentating for Fox Sports.
He did really well in the playoffs.
He's first of all, he's knowledgeable. He's a likable guy. He's every interview I've ever heard with him. If you haven't had a chance to hear Adam, the fans that are not in St. Louis or don't hear him on KMOX or Jimmy the Cat Hayes always talks to him, loves him. He's so funny and he's knowledgeable and likable and entertaining. So I think this is a perfect fit, and I wish him well. And we could look back at this and say, man, I forgot he was a pitcher. This guy's such a good commentator because, like a few people, athletes have come along, you know more as a announcer. So we'll see what happens there. But I'm glad he's done it, and I knew that guy would land on his feet somewhere, Vince. Yeah, that's nice to see that. Matt Carpenter is getting a contract to come back to the Cardinals and try to make the team out of spring training. It's a league minimal. I love Matt. He's been working with Matt Holliday over the winter, which is what Bellinger did last year. Seemed to have worked. I'm not expecting Bellinger type results, but I would love to see Matt make the team. He's a nice guy. When he left the Cardinals, he didn't, and he's a great team guy. This is my theory on this, but at one time he was a doubles hitter. I think he has the all-time record for a single season for a Cardinal in doubles. And when Oscar Triveras passed, we needed some power from anywhere we could get it. And I think they told him he needed to hit more home runs. And I think he started pooling everything after that. And he did have a 30 home run season, and he's moved to whatever position he played. He learned to play second base. Was he a Gold Glover? No, but he was a solid second baseman. He played first base. He played third. Whenever where you asked him to. So I think the having him be a power hitter kind of messed up his swing a little bit. But the last 3 years with St. Louis, oh, it was a rough. He didn't have much success, and we do love him. He went away and for a while with the Yankees until he got hurt. He was on fire, and with the Padres, he got hurt, and I don't think he was doing real well. So he's back with us. A lot of Cardinal fans I hear are not happy about this. Oh, look at the Cardinals, how cheap they are. They went and got this. It really didn't cost us anything. They're paying for most of his contract. It's a league minimum. There's a lot of times you invite veterans to spring training and they don't make the team. But sometimes you find a diamond in the rough and they make the team. Do I expect them to make the team? Probably not, to be honest. What do you think about that, Vince? Have you heard a lot about that?
Yeah, I've heard a lot, and I've read the same comments you have that, fans are kind of um not excited about it. And
Right.
yeah, it's not like they went out and they got Bellinger or Otani
No.
or something like that, but they're not looking for a guy to go out there and take 550 at bats. You're looking strictly for to see if this guy can still hit and have a professional hitter on the bench who can DH once or twice a week against right-handers, but can also go in and pinch hit. And if he doesn't make it, he doesn't make it. I don't think it's a big deal. You're not looking. This wasn't the signing that's going to take you to the World Series. This is a piece you're trying to fill with a guy who could possibly fill it. So what the heck? I always tell people it's not my money. I don't care. You know, it's not my money. If the Cardinals want to give him a league minimum contract and give him an opportunity to, I don't know, minor league contract or whatever, let him do it. What if he comes in and he takes 200 at bats, hits about 260, and pops about 8 or 10 home runs? That's awesome.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah. And
I
you got the veteran presence on the bench too.
Yeah, and we've heard some things, some rumblings about leadership, Cardinal leadership. I don't have any access to the the locker room or anything like that. But it sounds like it's kind of Donovan and Goldie, and maybe Carpenter could help. For some reason, you never hear about Arenado and leadership. So I don't know what's going on there. It'd be nice to have him back on the team. He always took good at bats. He would foul balls off, and even if he struck out, sometimes he'd see 7, 8, 9 pitches in a bat.
Yeah.
And
And,
nowadays, when these pitch counts.
and if he does hit 260, that means his on base percentage is going to be north of 340 because he is going to take his walks.
He'll take it. Yeah, he takes walks, which is great. So we'll see. I think that's a good chance, and it'll be good to see him down at spring training. Let's see what happens. You talked about money for a player. Well, the Cardinals had a guy that came up and back and forth to the minors, James Nail. He's a local kid around the Cape Girardeau area. I liked him. I went to a game and his family all decked out with James Nail jerseys, and he was warming up in the bullpen and got actually in the game that day. And but he is actually going over to Korea to their league and for cash considerations, and he's going to try to see what happens over there. A lot of players have went overseas and found a new pitch, found themselves. Miles Michaelis is one of those type players, and he came back and had a much better career. So we wish him all the well, James Nell. Love that guy, and I hope he does well. And I'd love to see him again in a Cardinal uniform. Um, and the last thing that happened in Cardinal land is Tommy Edman. He signed a 2-year extension onto his contract, and he avoids arbitration because sometimes when the player and the team get into it and they're, saying they don't want to give you as much as you want, sometimes there's bad feelings. So I love Tommy Edman. He's a fast guy. He steals 3 years in a row. He's been two over 30 and one, I think 28 stolen bases. So about 90 stolen bases in the last 3 years, which is very good. And utility guy, plays everywhere. So I'm glad he's back with the Cardinals, and he's going to be a big part of the team this year. So that's it from Cardinal land right there.
Well, there's not a whole lot going on in Cub news. Um, we are still don't have a closer sign. And I kind of wish Max was on here because I'd like to bounce this off of him. Last year, Chapman closed. Chapman, Alzolay closed. But he dealt with some injuries, so and he was injured down the stretch when we completely fell apart, and the pitching just completely fell apart. There is one guy that we had on our roster in September that has closer stuff, and that's Luke Little. So I'm starting to think This sounds like something counsel. This sounds like great counsel. Hold off. We can always add a closer at the deadline if we need one, but this guy has closer stuff. I'm going to throw him into the fire. That's what he does. And I'm curious if Luke Little is not going to be our closer. May not be named the closer. I know Ross, sometimes Ross, I'm not naming a closer, or Matt, and I'm not naming a closer.
Yeah.
I remember when Russo wasn't naming a closer, and one of his pitching coaches said, "Yeah, that guy's a closer," and Russo got mad. I don't remember the whole situation, but some managers are funny about that.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering if Luke Little is going to be our closer because the closers are going off the board pretty quick. As I said, Stevenson's gone, Hader's gone, Chapman's gone. So who knows?
Would you be happy with that? Would you that young fella getting a shot at it?
I would be because I feel like, okay, as this division stands, I don't think we're the best team in this division unless we bring back Bellinger. Then I think, okay, we've got a pretty good shot at it. But then again, I don't think as it stands now, I think 85 wins would win it. That's with nobody else being added to any rosters. If we add Bellinger and shore up third base with Matt Chapman or someone, then I think, all right, then we're the team to beat. Even if we don't start with a closer and we start with Luke Little. And if it doesn't work out with Luke Little, we've got enough stuff in the, we got enough commodities in the minors that we could make a trade and pick someone up. So I'm okay with it. I'm okay with starting the season with him there. I do. There are a lot of teams that don't like to tie up closers long term, and there's a reason because that kind of stress on an arm, they blow out.
That's true.
And it's always a gamble. So, spend your money elsewhere. Let's see if this guy can do it. If he can't, come June, get aggressive, package a few of these minor league talents, and hit a team that's already 20 games under 500 who has a closer they can get rid of. So, sad news in Cub land. Hall of Famer Ryan Sandberg has metastatic prostate cancer, and that's the issue when it's already spreading. So it's not good news, but we keep him in our thoughts as they go through the whole cancer process, which is just as bad as the disease. So, but that's really all that's going on in Cubland. So, who I think our new closer should be for Chicago?
You know what? If you can't get Mariano Rivera, you call in our buddy Jeremy Connor from the bullpen.
Jeremy Connor is going to close for the Cubs this year. Comes a time in every man's life when he needs some advice on relationships. You need to listen to the podcast DMDR, which stands for Dating, Marriage, Divorce, Remarriage, from my good friend Jeremy Connor, the Dr. Phil of the Boot Hill. You can find DMDR on Spotify or whatever platform you choose to listen to your podcast. Welcome to the panel. We have the four most beautiful faces you've ever seen in your life on a different podcast, because right here you've just got us. Welcome back, Phil. How are you doing?
It's an honor to be here, contributing to my favorite podcast, guys.
Oh,
thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ray, how are you doing?
I'm a little under the weather, but I'm doing good. Thank you for inviting me back. It's always fun watching you guys and being on here.
All right, man. This is a Hall of Fame roundtable right here tonight on Hall of Fame Day.
Okay, Hall of Fame. Adrian Beltre, Joe Mauer, Todd Helton, the newest members to go with Jim Leland. Are we pleased with this?
Yes.
I am. This is kind of what I picked. I had all these statistics and everything, and I thought Gary Shetfield, being his last year, might get in there, but he didn't. He'll have to go to the Veterans Committee to get in. But I did pick Helton. I had 3 going this year and 3 made it. So I guessed right.
I was thrilled to see Beltre get in and also Helton. I am a little, I didn't have Joe Mauer as a first ballot Hall of Famer. And I am very frustrated that Matt Holliday didn't get more support than he did.
Yeah, he's going to fall off the ballot, isn't he?
Yes, he only got 4 votes, so he will not be allowed on the ballot next year. And so one of the stats that I like to use when I consider whether or not a guy should be in the Hall of Fame is a stat called Hall of Fame Monitor. That was created by Bill James, and it is a stat that is essentially designed to measure a player's prestige. Because what it does is it awards points for achievements and accomplishments and awards. It's like if you win Rookie of the Year, you get 1 point. A Gold Glove is good for 2 points. An All-Star Game selection is good for 3 points, and so on and so forth. MVP, Cy Young Award, even being the starting pitcher of a World Series game, all has points associated with it. And I feel like that's a really good way to measure just how many times and how many ways a guy has found himself on top of the baseball world. And, you know, it's the Hall of Fame, right? Not just the Hall of Very Good or the Hall of Statistics. And the way the number is set up, if your Hall of Fame monitor is 100 or greater, it is likely that you will eventually be inducted into the Hall of Fame. And if your Hall of Fame monitor number is less than 100, it is likely that you will eventually be forgotten about by the baseball world writ large. And just to give you an example, Albert Pujols is around 12th all time in Hall of Fame monitor. His Hall of Fame monitor score is 334, which means he's more than triple your, likely Hall of Famer.
No brainer.
Yeah, Scott Rowland, who got in recently, his Hall of Fame monitor was 99. So right there on the cusp. And I think the awards and accomplishments that he had with Philly, from being Rookie of the Year on up to the awards and accomplishments that he had with St. Louis and being part of the MV3, all added up to push him across the finish line and into the Hall of Fame. And Joe Mauer's Hall of Fame monitor is 92. And for me, the Hall of Fame monitor doesn't measure whether or not a guy is deserving of going into the Hall of Fame. It just measures how many accomplishments he's had that might typically be ascribed to a Hall of Fame resume. And so for him to get first ballot into the Hall with a monitor score of 92, I mean, Jim Emmons had a Hall of Fame monitor of 89 and didn't make it through his first ballot. Jorge Posada, who is also a catcher and who I personally think should be in the Hall of Fame, has a Hall of Fame monitor of 98, so 6 points more than Mauer, and he didn't make it through his first year of eligibility either. And so I expected Mauer to get a lot of support. I did not expect him to get first year over the line kind of support. He's now the 60th player in Major League Baseball history to go into the Hall of Fame in his first year of eligibility. And I think he's a Hall of Famer. I don't think I would put him in the Hall over some of the guys who will get to come back next year. And maybe even some of the guys who won't get to.
Well, concerning Mauer, his point score could have been higher if he was not catching at the same time Rodriguez was catching. That blocked him from some Gold Gloves.
Sure.
He's also a catcher who's won 3 batting titles to go along with the stellar defense. And I appreciate what you're saying, and I get what you're saying. And I was surprised he got in on the first ballot, but I also read where statistically he's the 7th best catcher statistically in the history of baseball, and there are a lot of catchers underneath him who are in the Hall. So when you break it down by position, maybe it's a little more impressive. As I said before we started rolling here, I can't believe what did Billy Wagner do wrong? I don't think anything. And I know for a good period of time in the 9th inning, who would I want to come in to the game but Billy Wagner? He was that dominant. And someone threw out the name of Trevor Hoffman before we started rolling here. Trevor Hoffman's Hall of Fame worthy, and he was a great closer. But I don't remember any real defining moments. He pitched a lot for a mediocre team. I would rather have Wagner than Hoffman. Now, that brings me to this point, Todd Helton. Todd Helton, if you take his away stats, he's nowhere near Hall of Fame. Nowhere near. He is below Steve Garvey, as far as his away stats. So he's one player who really, really, really benefited from cores. So I'm not saying Helton shouldn't have made it in there. I was surprised that Helton made it in, but Wagner didn't. And as far as Gary Sheffield goes, there's just so much baggage there from when he was young and he was intentionally throwing the ball into the stands from third base because he wanted out of Milwaukee, and he admitted that to the brush with steroids and stuff like that. And he wasn't the most nice guy all the time. So, and being this was his last shot, I thought maybe he would get in, but he didn't. But I understand why he didn't, because there are human beings still voting, and human beings remember some of this stuff. So there's my 2 cents on the Hall of Fame. I'm not going to argue with anything.
No, I never heard of the statistic that you had a while ago about the Bill James one. I just learned about the Jaws one, and of course, War's been around for a while too. I'm one of those. I'm the oldest person here. I go batting. I test, batting average, RBIs, home runs, and I know baseball's kind of, the statisticians are getting away from that kind of thing. But I look at that, and another thing you talked about Posada, who I think could very well be. There's no right and wrong answer, but sometimes it helps if you play in the same place for a long time. You kind of get that legendary status. And also, if you're the best player on your team, like Joe Mauer was probably the most identified star on the Twins during his years there. Posada, who's a very good player, but you had Jeter, who has cast a huge shadow, and A-Rod and Bernie Williams, and who's better, Bernie Williams, Posada. They're both very, very good players. And then of course the greatest reliever that ever lived played for the Yankees at that time too. So I think that kind of hurts him in a way a little bit. Will he get eventually? I think there's a pretty good chance right there. Yeah, I don't think Wagner did anything wrong, to be honest with you. And he's got statistics of WAR and that Jaws better than some Hall of Famers that's in there. I think he ranks 7th, and all the guys ahead of him are Hall of Famers. And then the Jaws numbers is equal to the Hoffman one. So I could see him getting in. Doesn't he have one more year of eligibility? I think he has
Yes.
one
Yeah.
more year, and I think he's so close. I think he missed by 5 votes.
Mhm.
So maybe next year. And the only slam dunk, like I thought Beltran was a slam dunk. Like that
Oh, yeah.
guy, no way. He's probably the 3rd greatest overall third baseman that ever lived. I think you go Eddie Matthews second, and of course Mike Schmidt first, in my book anyway. But I think next year Wagner's got a real good shot of making it. And anyway, it's been great. And Ichiro's coming on to the ballot next year, and I think he's the only slam
You
dunk.
think he'll make it?
Yeah, I think there's a pretty good chance. Ray, what did you think about the ballot this year and the election and all that?
Well, I wrote down a list of who I thought was going to go, and in the order I wrote Beltray, Helton, Wagner, which I was surprised he didn't make it, honestly. Then Mauer, and then I also just added Sheffield, Beltran, and Chase Utley in there because I thought those guys are real close or should be in. They're right there. So
Right
that's
there.
the 6 or 7 that I came up with. I knew Beltray was, probably for sure. I knew Helton was probably for sure. I didn't realize the away stats, as Vince were saying, were not as good as they were, but
They're good.
Field definitely helped that man out for sure. So
Yeah,
sometimes players
the stats are good. They're like
Yeah.
287 batting average. There's a dip in power, of course, leaving cores, but his cores numbers are so much better.
Sure.
It's like Larry Walker. They're a little closer with some guys. Helton's just seem to be.
Yeah, I don't have Helton's like lifetime, but it's over 300, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
316, I think.
316, 318, something like that.
It's like 340 at cores.
Well, it probably is.
Yeah.
He was a terror there for sure. But yeah, that's the list I wrote, and I understand the Sheffield thing about his behaviors, and then of course that stint of steroid stuff. I don't think he was actually involved with the steroids. He just had to testify, right?
There was some kind of brush. I don't know if he was actually in the Mitchell report or he wasn't Bonds. He wasn't Sosa.
I don't think he ever tested positive. I think he had to testify at court or something about the other players, of course. So the steroid thing, I think we can throw that out. But the other stuff, I get it. There's a little brush with it there. But if he never tested positive, then that's.
I have a question for everybody. 4 guys in the Hall of Fame, that's quite a big group. Usually we have maybe 3, 1, sometimes none. Are you guys more just to get in the big leagues is a major feat. To play 10 years, I think 10 years to me is like you got to play more than 10 years. Most guys don't play 10 years. Then to be a really good player, it's a little group, but to be in the Hall of Fame, that's just such a small group. And we probably all have somebody that made the Hall of Fame that we're like, I don't know about that guy. But are y'all more of a fan of a small Hall of Fame or, bigger Hall of Fame? Like, let's let some of these more other guys get in. How do you feel about that? Ray, what do you think about you like a big Hall of Fame where you get more like,
Sure.
like you mentioned about 8, 9 guys there.
Sure.
Would you like to see that kind of?
I would be in favor of a bigger Hall of Fame. It's these guys, some of them play very, very well and just never get that chance to get in there. And like you said, there's some people that we think should be in there that are not there and that kind of stuff. Why not let them in? If they're right there on the cusp and like who's the other guest? I'm sorry, I forgot your name already.
Phil.
Oh,
Phil.
Phil.
Phil has that monitor point system or whatever. If you got some guys that are at 99, 98, they should be in there, in my opinion. That's so close.
That's right there, man. Right there.
That and like he also said, if they don't make it in, they're going to be forgotten, and I would rather remember them, honestly.
Phil, what do you think about that? About a smaller Hall of Fame where it's just like 1% of 1% or a little bit bigger Hall of Fame?
So I absolutely favor a larger Hall of Fame, not just because it allows us to honor more players, but because I believe the distinction of being an enshrined Hall of Famer carries some responsibilities with it that a lot of guys who were talented enough to get there in the first place are also willing to take up once they're there. And I mean, we all know a lot of these guys do a lot of charity work and a lot of promoting the game that none of us ever hear about. You know, they don't make a big deal out of it, and so neither does the media. That said, I think more Hall of Famers would result in more charity work and more wonderful things being done in the name of baseball and on behalf of baseball that are worth celebrating. And you know, you mentioned not many players make it to 10 years of service time. Uh, I I have been glued to baseball as a hobby for so long. I never suggested anybody buy Albert Pujols cards until he had his 10 years of service time in. The list of Major League Baseball players who have appeared in multiple All-Star games and not gotten to 10 years of service time is eye-popping. And part of the reason for that is that historically, if a guy makes a major league appearance uh, in any capacity, pitches one inning, pinch runs for a guy, gets a pinch hit, whatever, the CBA has that player lined up to collect health insurance or to have Major League Baseball's health insurance for the rest of their lives.
Oh, really?
But
One
you,
just wow.
yes, but you have to get your 10 years of service time in to be able to get a pension.
Uh,
And you would be amazed at how many guys get 7 or 8 or 9 years of service time in, and then all of a sudden can't catch on with a team, can't get a contract anywhere, and therefore are stopped from getting a pension. And then you have other guys. I don't know if anybody remembers the name Mike Greenwell, but he
oh
was a
yeah, yeah.
Boston Red Sox outfielder, a very talented guy who has since admitted that he hated almost everything about being a major leaguer. He hated the travel, he hated the dealing with the fans and the media. I mean, he loved baseball, but he hated being a baseball player. And he actually retired as soon as he had like 10 years and 1 day of service time and was guaranteed to get his pension. For me, I think we should be promoting the Hall of Fame by promoting people into it, not by excluding people from it. You know, in my mind and in my heart, the small hall guys that only want Albert Pujols and Derek Jeter and those kinds of guys into the hall, and they want to keep everybody else out, are missing an opportunity to promote the game and promote the people who keep the game fun and exciting and relevant. And that's why I am a large Hall of Fame guy.
Oh, that's cool.
I had never thought about it from that aspect as a uh, promotional aspect of the good that can be done with the game, the good that is done with the game, charitable work and stuff like that. Because you say BB Richards is going to be at such and such, okay, big deal. But when you say uh, so and so, Joe Mauer or Todd Helton now, you know, Hall of Famer, that's a draw, and you're going to raise more money. So I like your perspective on that.
Thank you.
I'm
Saying
the
that,
only
I
one.
want a small Hall of Fame. I just want 3 people in there, all Cubs: Banks, Jenkins, Williams. That's it.
That's it. That's all there is. Now, I'm the oddball here. I like a small Hall of Fame because whoever you are that go in, you're going to be mentioned with Ruth and Aaron, DiMaggio and Williams. And I like St. Louis and the Chicago and all these teams have their team Hall of Fame. And we got Jason Isringhausen in there, and I love Jason Isringhausen. I nothing against him, but I would not put him in the regular hall. But I will tell you this: I went to Texas Rangers Stadium in 2020, and they were actively promoting Beltran, who didn't really need them to talk about how great he is, but they had Beltran everything up there because it meant so much to them because now one of theirs was going into the hall and he was going to, I'm sure he's going to go in as a Ranger,
I'm sure.
and this is now great for the Rockies. I don't know if anyone has played their whole career there and went in. So now they have one of their own, and he will be like their Ernie Banks and Stan Musial. This is our guy. And I will say one thing about Hulton that this stat hadn't been mentioned, but I like this stat. In a day where people strike out so much, Todd Helton over the course of his career walked 160 more times than he struck out. You don't really hear about that anymore. I mean, that's the old way with the Yogi Berras and the DiMaggios and things like that. So that was a stat as I was going through everything, that kind of surprised me. I didn't know. Oh my gosh, it was so hard to strike that guy out. So anyway, there's a little love for Todd Helton there.
Yeah, he was always a handful for the Cubs, no matter where they played him.
If we
So,
played him in Colorado, though, it was much rougher.
yeah. Well, Phil, you brought up something that kind of segues with your Mike Greenwell statement into something I did want to bring up. Anthony Rendon decided that it would be a good idea, when asked what he would change about baseball, to say, well, we need to shorten it, from a guy who, and this forced me to do a dive into Anthony Rendon. Doesn't like to play baseball. These injury things, that's kind of consistent with his personality. There are people who are not baseball people who play baseball just because they can do that very well. And it seems to me that Rendon, although I know a lot of players have that sentiment, it's a very long season. I understand that. There are times when you have a 20-game stretch and you don't get a day off, and people think, well, you only work 3 hours a day. No, you don't. If you're a great Major League Baseball player, you are working 12, 14 hours a day at it, so it's a very difficult life. But when you've had the reputation he's had since signing that monstrous contract, you got to read the room a little bit and say, maybe this statement shouldn't come out of my mouth. But anyway, he does bring something up. Do you think that the baseball season would benefit if they shorten it? Anybody can jump in.
I see.
I don't think so, honestly. I like it the way it is. I don't like the way the playoffs are done. That's the only gripe, I guess, I have about it anymore, because the playoffs, home field advantage should, I was telling JJ about this, I guess, a month or two ago. I said, people have home field advantage. All the games should be played at their home. They won the division, they won ever. They shouldn't have to go anywhere and play. That's just my outlook on it. But the length of the season is fine. I could watch it all year long. Honestly, they could make it, 12 months out of the year, and I'll watch it and listen to it on the radio every day.
I would also, I am absolutely against shortening the regular season. And it's easy for me to say because I'm not trying to do the job every day, but I would actually be in favor of increasing the number of games played. And I don't think you have to change the calendar to make that happen. I think what you have to do is allow teams to have a slightly larger roster, because I am not old enough to remember when double headers were regularly scheduled.
And I
You
am.
know,
Yeah,
I,
yeah, remember those.
well, and I did grow up here, and Ernie Banks is famous for saying, "Hey, let's play two." He and even in my own life, I mean, if I'm dressed ready to go at work, I'm ready to work, and I want to work all day long. And I know that there have to be baseball players who feel that same way and who have that same kind of passion for what they do. And it's unfortunate that a guy of Rendon's stature is apparently not one of them. Um, and I heard a woman who was covering the Nationals at the time that Rendon got that contract from the Angels, who said nobody who was in the back of the room with the Nationals could believe Rendon got that kind of a deal from Artie Moreno, because they all knew that Rendon wasn't 100% bought in on being the best that he could be. Rendon just happened to be talented enough to shine when compared to most of his peers. But in the same way, every pro athlete's body breaks down. For a lot of pro athletes, the mental side is what goes first more than their bodies. And she indicated that a lot of people covering the Nationals at that time thought Rendon was already over the hill mentally, even if he wasn't yet physically. And so she couldn't believe that he got that kind of a contract. And I'll tell you, Artie Moreno is, I think, leading the league in bad contracts. I mean, uh, and or would be had C.J. Wilson and Josh Hamilton not scared him so bad that he didn't give out large contracts for the next decade until it was pay Trout or lose him. And even then, he paid Trout but wouldn't pay Otani. So I don't have the most respect for the way the Angels run their club. And at the same time, I have so much respect for everybody who's playing the game because they want to be playing the game, which, for the record, is most of the guys who are out there, because most of them haven't made any money yet.
I think that well, one thing I want to address, JJ and I, we do remember when double headers were scheduled, and it was the coolest thing because there was, I think at the time, there was only like a 20-minute break in between games. And then the second lineup was always interesting because it was your guys who weren't getting much playing time. I remember watching a Cub Cardinal doubleheader in the 70s, and the second game, Luke Brock batted cleanup. You would get some crazy fun lineups. And like Disco Demolition Night for the White Sox, that happened in between doubleheader games and stuff like that. It used to be really cool that they would schedule these, and now because of money, if there is, they do have to do a doubleheader because of a rain out. They try to make it a day night or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I could go with I don't know if I want to lengthen, but I don't want it shortened. I can keep the 162 schedule, but I wish they would sprinkle in a few double headers, scheduled double headers, to give players more time off to recuperate. And on top of that, I'm such a baseball fan. I will watch anything. If the Cubs aren't on, I will go ahead and watch the Blue Jays play the Rays. That's just the way I am. So I would have no problem scheduling double headers and getting that fun back into game. My friend Phil, he went to a double header when we were growing up. He was about 12 years old, and he sat in the bleachers and he said, "Oh, it's nothing like TV. He said by about the fourth inning of the second game, I was ready to go home. So, hot, sweaty. Of course, the bleachers were fun then.
I'm gonna put my 2 cents in there. I love baseball. It's perfect. 162. It used to be 154, but we have expansion. It was set up so you could play every team in your division so many times, and the other, the East and West, and you play them so many times. And now they've got 3 divisions, and now there's interleague play. But let's keep it at 162 because there's some sort of like in the NFL. I remember 12 games. Now it's set, what, 17? And
Yeah.
now everybody's breaking every record that ever existed. It's like, oh, who's that Terry Bradshaw or Dan Fouts? These guys are just shattering these records. 162 is perfect because it's life. Spring comes, the flowers, the grass comes out, the ivy's kind of gray from the winter, and all of a sudden we hit the summer, the midsummer classic, the ivy's going on. We got the thing, we got the pennant races down the stretch, and everything kind of goes to sleep and goes to bed. And in September, and we got the playoffs in October, and then we go away for the winter. And I just think that's perfect. But the players I love the most are the ones that like if you did anything for a job, I think you might get tired of it. You wouldn't have that same maybe love for it. But there are players that I just can tell this is what they do. Satchel Paige said, I never had a job. I just played baseball. And I love that phrase. I love that phrase. Pete Rose, he couldn't help himself, but man, that guy loved to play. I mean, in an exhibition game, he's running over the catcher. He's diving like Superman into third base. I think Bryce Harper's one of those types of players. I think he truly just loves to play the game. We've had guys on our team, and I'll mention JD Drew. He never hurried off the DL. Seems like when he went on the DL, we didn't see him for a long time. Then you got Yadier Molina, who lost a testicle. He's back in 3.5 weeks. I mean, God, you got to love those guys that get out there and play. So to answer your question, Vince, I think it's perfect the way it is right now. Sorry, I went a little long-winded there.
No, that's okay. I think what we have safely concluded was that Anthony Rendon should maybe keep his mouth shut. So.
Very good. Very good. I got a question for everybody. We're about a month away from spring training, and I thought we'd have some Cub fans here too. We got Vince, of course, the alpha Cub fan. But what do we need? What is the big thing we need to do? We were 71 and 91 last year as Cardinal fan, as Cardinals. What's the one thing you think we need that needs to happen to get us at least up to 500? What's something that we need to take care of this year that needs to go differently? You guys have any ideas on that? What's the one big thing we need to do to get there?
I'll chime in. If I was the GM for the Cardinals, I would make a push for another pitcher. You got Sonny Gray, who's a 1, and then you got guys who are like 3, 4, 5s. There's quite a drop off. So I would take a serious look at bringing back Montgomery, maybe ponying up the money for Snell. Even though I can't stand watching pitch because I don't like the walks, but if you're, from an outsider looking in, I'm not going to get too hyped up about the Cardinals unless they get another front of the rotation pitcher. And then I'm going to okay, yeah, they're back in the driver's seat for the division.
All right. Ray,
Yeah.
you got any ideas on that?
I'm on the same page as Vince there. We need one more pitcher at least, and maybe even some middle relief pitching. I don't know if they're going to do that before the season starts. I think they're just going to test what they've got, and if it, the first month or two it works out, then they're going to go after somebody. I would hope I hope they'd get Snell, or I'm not a big fan of Dylan Cease, and I think the White Sox want way too much for him, but he's probably the next best available. I would even shoot for some more middle relief though, besides a starter. I'm kind of like with Vince on that. We have our ace, and then we have some guys that are right there 3, 4, and maybe even a 5. I hope it works out, but I'm not, I'm not sure if it's going to, and it's okay. We Cardinals have down seasons, and I understand that. And we're in the process of, coming off a real bad season. So there's only one way to go technically, and that's up. So I think one of the pieces with Sonny Gray was there. Lance Lynn coming back might be okay. If he has a rebound year and doesn't give up any home runs, we'll take him.
He'll give some home runs. Yeah.
So I am a third generation, lifelong, diehard Cardinals fan. And for the last 10 years, I've been blessed to be able to go to about 70 home games a season. And this offseason has been the quintessential Cardinals offseason, because the Cardinals have proven time and again that they are year in and year out two things: greedy and cheap. And it's my understanding Sonny Gray grew up as a Cardinals fan and turned down more money from at least one other team to sign his 3-year, $75 million deal with the Cardinals, which I think they got a heck of a hometown discount there. But it's my understanding that he turned down more money from the Giants and told them, hey, your taxes are so much higher in California than they are in Missouri. It's not really more money. So I'm going to pitch for the team I grew up rooting for. I understand Kyle Gibson pitched more innings than any other Orioles pitcher last year, but I have not forgotten that he was not their best pitcher last year. He was their third or fourth most weeks and most times through the rotation. Lance Lynn, I am shocked we brought him back. I thought he was in Mo's doghouse forever, and we've watched Mozeliak hold grudges. But I also thought Lynn looked pretty good in the first half last year and hurt in the second half last year, and then they traded him to the Dodgers, and down the stretch he looked even worse. And then in the playoffs was the one Dodger starter that just got blown up. So
Kershaw did too.
Oh, true.
Yeah,
But I am
1/3 of an inning,
crossing
I
my
think.
fingers that this pitching staff holds up, because what the Cardinals did was they got 3 sweetheart deals from 3 good old boys who want to be here, and that's a different way from how some of the better heeled teams have approached this offseason. And frankly, one of the reasons the Cardinals became the Cardinals was because they were eons ahead of most other major league clubs in terms of radio revenue. At one time, the Yankees had the northeast quadrant of the United States and were the darlings of baseball, but the Cardinals had the southeast, the southwest, and the northwest, and were the darlings of everybody that didn't want to see the Yankees win year in and year out. And KMOX is what catapulted the Cardinals from relative obscurity for the first 40 years, where they were the laughing stock of the National League, into being able to put together the Gas House Gang and win World Series titles left and right. And what we are seeing now is that the teams that have their own television stations are making the same kind of jumps ahead of the teams that don't. What allows the Yankees and the Dodgers and the Cubs and the Braves to keep winning and keep spending is they all have their own television networks. They have their own TV stations promoting their product 24/7, 365. And the Cardinals are one of the 5 or 6 teams that it looks like are hurt the worst by the whole Fox Sports / Bally's kerfluffle bankruptcy. I don't even understand exactly what's going on. I just understand that we didn't get to see Cardinal spring training games on TV last year because this was starting to become a thing. And I don't know that we're going to get to watch the Cardinals on TV at all this year because it's still being worked out. end quote. And so while I don't know how they would do it, the Cardinals are going to have to figure out how to do in television what the Cardinals figured out how to do in radio 80 years ago. If they're going to really want to start competing for world championships again.
Well, my thought on all this is I hear a lot of people saying we overestimate our talent in the minors. Like, the Cardinals think
I say that.
I hear from Vince it's like I put my head to the seashell. You overestimate your talent. But I think we've decided this is a big pivotal year. We've decided we're keeping these guys. There's been a lot of interest for Dylan Carlson. Maybe after last year it was a little less, and Gorman at second base. And, these guys that we've had for about 3 or 4 years, they really need to step up and see some growth from them if we're going to compete with the Brewers and the Cubs and, well, the Reds and the Pirates too. I think they're getting better. This division's up for grabs. And, we know what we're going to get. 2 years ago, we really leaned on Goldie and Arenado. Last year, they didn't have those MVP type years. They had good years, but not MVP years. And it really showed. And I mean, we did move O'Neill and Richie Incognito, or no, that's the lineman. the guy was Richie, the outfielder with the goggles. We moved those guys, and we got some talent for them, but we've pretty much hung on to everybody. Kisner, we just let him walk. I thought we at least could trade him. But Ivan Herrera is up now. I'm big on him. I think this is a big pivotal year to see if this young talent, of course, Wynn and Walker, but they're so young. I mean, they're babies. They're just starting out. But I think that's going to be the deciding factor. If this young talent can just stay, make some improvements, strike out a little less, make a little more contact, be healthy, be available. I think we could. I'm not saying playoffs, but I'm saying we could make a run at it this year, But it's been, like you said, Phil, it's been a while since we've been a team that was even in consideration for a world championship. I'd say, maybe the early 2000 teens, like right there, 13, 14, 12, right in there. Ever since then, we've just been good, but just okay kind of thing, So this is the big pivotal thing for me is the young players making that next step. And that's my answer to that question. What do you think about the Cubs? What's the Cubs? What's their big
Cubs? This is what if the season started right now and I had to put money down, I'd put it on the Reds. That's where I'm at right now.
Young pitching. They got some young pitching.
If we can't get another bat in the lineup, and if we can't add something to the bullpen, but as it stands now, I would say the Reds with 85 wins. That would be my best guess right now.
Okay.
But we do have to wrap this up on that sad note of me trying to talk about the Cubs. So
thank you guys.
Phil, thanks a lot for coming on here. Appreciate it so much.
Thanks so much for having me, fellas. It's been great.
We got like 3 weeks spring training.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming.
So
the 15th of March, I think.
We are getting happier by the day. Got to admit that. All right, gentlemen, thank you. I appreciate it.
JJ, Vince, thanks for having me on again.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Always a pleasure, fellas. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Phil.
Hey, I do want to thank our panel. Great job. Ray Hartman, great job.
Phil.
Ray and Phil.
Yes.
Phil Brooks. Great job, you guys. I didn't forget you, Phil. I just kind of had a brain cramp because I'm pushing 60 here. But anyway, great job, guys. A lot of insight onto the Hall of Fame that I hadn't even thought about. So I love having the panels because
I do too.
Smarter people than us, and they
well, that's not hard.
sit us down and say, "Listen, you dumb hillbillies, this is how it should go." So, all right. What are you opening?
Well, before I do that, I got a couple things to show. Vince, I had this as a kid, and for it's a long story. I lost it, but I found something. I found it. This is a ruler, the 1967 Cardinals, and it's got all the whole roster on here. And when you turn it around to the other back, oh, sorry, there you go. It's got the entire World Series champion team on there. I didn't even know this existed. I got this when I was like in seventh grade, and somehow it disappeared around my 11th grade year. And I found this, and it's in real good shape. You can see, they're not faded. That's usually what happens. The players fade and all that. So anyway, I got that. I thought that was pretty cool.
Okay, time out.
Yes.
I think of all the things that you've ever shown me, that's the coolest thing I've seen because I haven't seen it before.
Yeah, I've never seen this. And Jerry Buchek, let's see, Red Shanings, of course, is the first one here because he was the coach at the time. 67 is the year that the Cardinals beat the Red Sox in the World Series, and Bob Gibson, was being Bob Gibson. But I mean, there is so many. Orlando Cepeda, Kurt Flood, Steve Carlton, Mike Shannon's on here. Oh, it's pretty cool. Lou Brock, Roger Maris, Julian Javier. That's one of my favorite names to say. But that's pretty cool right there. So anyway, I've had that, and I'm telling you what, the stuff from the '60s is starting to go up in price because it's getting rarer and rarer, especially to find it in good shape. I'm a postcard guy, and I got a Whitey Herzog, and I love Whitey, but he's over 90 years old now, so I've kind of been on a Whitey Herzog binge right now, collecting all my Whitey stuff. That's a postcard of Whitey signed right there. So got that. And Vince, oh, by the way, the Grizzlies have a St. Louis Browns Day. We've mentioned this, and they've had 6 of them. And they auction off, the players wear brown uniforms, and they have an auction, and all the money goes to charity. So you can get a Browns jersey, it's all kinds of Browns things around the ballpark. And one of the big things that day is a giveaway. And I have all the Brownie bobbleheads except the one this year, but now I have them all. Marty Marion right there wearing, and he's got the Brownie on the sleeve. And I know a lot of people think, what the heck, JJ? What the heck's with the bobbleheads? I love the bobbleheads. All right. Bobblehead power. But I got Marty Marion. And this was my project over the weekend. And I don't really want to move it because it might flip. But I made a Lee Smith shadow box. I got the autographed jersey. Vince, in honor of his Cub career, I have the blue over here and all the Cub cards. I got 22 of them. And then I've got the Cardinal ones. I got 3 autographed Cardinal cards here, some stickers, a bobblehead. They had a Lee Smith day at the ballpark, an 8x10 that's autographed. And right there at the top, I've got an autographed ball of Lee Smith. He went in the Hall of Fame. It's Hall of Fame day here on the podcast, and he went in as a Cub, and he played more years with the Cubs. But Lee Smith was one of my all-time favorites. He'd come lumbering. He's a big, 6'6", 250-pound man from Louisiana, and he'd lumber in from that bullpen and just throw BBs at you. And man, so anyway, I just love that thing right there. So I just want to share
that. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. So anyway,
honestly, when you first sent it to me, I thought, why do you make a shadow box with Lonnie Smith? That was the first thing that came to my mind.
Skates. Yeah. Skates. I don't know if you knew this, but he was a very good basketball player, but he had bad knees. And that's why he chose baseball and pitching over basketball. So that's pretty darn cool. Lee Smith, man. It's an honor meeting him. All of our heroes, Vince, are getting older. And if you don't take the chance to meet these guys when you can, he was up in St. Louis at the big, they have a yearly convention. He was there. And I thought, who am I going to get? There was Jim Cott. I love Jim Cott. There was a lot of them, but I said, I'm going to focus on Lee Smith, and that's great for the Cub Cardinal, one beer, one Cardinal, one Cub broadcast. Cause he represents both of our teams right there. Well, Vince, getting to the cards, I have the Topps this year's series 2 right there. And there's Judge on the front. And this year it's going to be fun watching him and Soto back to back in that lineup, man. And they got that the other guy too. God, I can't think of his name right now. The one they got from the Marlins. Oh shoot. The guy who's always hurt. They're gonna have it. They're got 3 studs in that lineup now.
Why am I brain cramping too?
Yeah, I'm having one of those days, man. The day I'm telling you what, with wintertime, seems like I just want to hibernate. So anyway, so here is my series 2. Oh, they have an all-star. I like this. This is from an old style of card, but it's the all-star of Justin Verlander. So there's Justin right there. Living the high life, man. Future Hall of Famer.
Life. Yeah.
Oh man, the car collection, living it up. Alec Burleson. Alec Burleson, I think he's one of the guys that are going to have to step up this year. We were talking about the young guys coming through, did great in the minors, but he could be a big impact guy this year. So we'll see. The MLB stars, and this is Jose Altuve, the little man with the big bat, right there.
You go.
Fantastic player. And I tell you what, those Astros and Braves are not going to hand over that trophy to the Dodgers this year. That's going to be some good series there, right there. A guy, maybe on the fast track, had a nice career, Manny Machado. Baltimore, Padre, Dodger, right there. We have a Cub in the house. Brad Boxberger.
Brad Boxberger, yes.
Yeah, right there. And that's my favorite Cub jerseys, those blues jerseys right there. That's very cool. Those are my favorites. All right. I don't know about this guy. Freddie Tardnick from the A's. Yes.
I did not watch much minor league baseball last year, so
That's right. The AAA Oakland A's. Oh yes, I remember this guy from the World Series. Gerardo Perdomo.
yeah.
Right there. Right there. I'll tell you what. Looks like they're building something good down there. Oh, ex-Cardinal. He's with the Mets this year. Harrison Bader right there. So I'm glad he's with the team this year. Wish him well. Ex-Cardinal, and we are one of our not good moves, Garcia from the Texas Rangers. That guy has been a stud. And
Excuse me.
Martin Maldonado, what was he? A catcher. I think he signed on with somebody else this year, didn't he?
Yeah. He was on last week. He was on my notes. He hooked up with someone else. So
Yeah. Well, I wish him well. He might get more playing time somewhere else. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. I can't say these names. Another Diamondback player.
Yep.
Yeah, very nice player.
Good year last year.
Oh yeah. Zach Plesac. You know, he had one really big year, and I haven't heard much from him since. But I think there must be some injuries or something like that. But a very talented young man for the Cleveland Ball Club.
Yeah,
Okay.
he signed with someone, and I don't remember who. Yeah, it takes me a few weeks
Oh,
into the
yeah.
season before I get
I'm
everything
with you.
straight.
Yeah, when you see the guys in the new uniforms and everything. Andrew Heaney, the reliever for Texas right there.
Yeah.
Great. They had a great bullpen, man. And this kid here, it says future star. You were talking about right now, you would put the Reds as the favorite to win the division. Nick Lodolo. And he is one of the bright young arms for the Cincinnati Reds. And look out, they got a nice 1-2. Their pitching staff's pretty good. They're all young guys, and they all are very talented. So this guy, recognize his name because I think he's got a bright future ahead of him. So that's it for my pack right there, Vince.
I am opening up Donruss 1992 Series 2.
Ooh, all right. Let's see how many Hall of Famers are in there. I'm picking 2.
I'll take 3.
All right.
I'll go with it.
You're going the over. All right.
There is a checklist.
Oh, we got cheated right out of the gate. Right out of the gate, we got cheated.
Well, could have been a Hall of Famer if things would have worked out different. Jose
Canseco. Taking that baseball off the top of the head.
Former pitcher for the Brewers, Edwin Nuez.
Oh, yes. Okay, I remember him.
Former Blue Jay pitcher, Juan Guzman.
Oh yeah, Guzman had some good years.
Yeah, it's pretty good. For the Yankees, Wade Taylor. I don't remember him.
Remember him? No, I don't either.
Very, very handsome guy there.
Oh
Very
yeah, them Yankees. Short hair, no mustaches or beards. They got mustaches now.
Oh, for the Indians, Carlos Martinez.
I think it's a different Carlos Martinez.
Yeah, there's been a few of them.
Yeah.
All right. Pitcher for the Toronto Blue Jays, Tom Candiotti.
Oh yeah, knuckleballer.
Do you remember the movie 62, the Billy Crystal movie about the
The home run chase. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know that in the scene where they brought in Hoyt Wilhelm to face Maris, that was Candiotti, because
Candiotti.
Billy Crystal, who's a huge baseball fan, wanted an actual knuckleballer to come in.
I'll be
So he
darned.
played that role.
All right, he's in the union.
Yeah.
Candiotti's in the Actors Guild.
Dale Fame.
I remember him. I do remember him.
Yeah, played with the Cardinals or the Cubs a little bit. Coach.
I think Milwaukee.
Yeah. Joe Gray. Don't remember him.
No.
Joseph Milton Gray. Grahe. Sorry.
Was he in Cabaret? Was that the guy in Cabaret?
Could have been.
Joe Gray.
I know this is going to be one of your all-time favorite Cardinals.
Okay.
Hurricane Hudler.
Oh, love Rex Hudler. Love Rex. Hey, come on the podcast, Rex Hudler. I want to talk to that guy about fishing, hunting, everything.
Yeah, and he's a great color commentator. Awesome.
Oh yeah, he's fantastic.
Got our first Hall of Famer.
All right.
The much hated Ozzie Smith.
The Wizard. I think I got him on the back here somewhere.
Former Reds and Mariners catcher Dan Wilson.
Yes.
Some pretty decent years.
Yeah, I remember him. Seattle for sure.
Yeah. Oh, we have Andahar Cedeno. I think he had a stint with the Cubs, Astros. And we have Rance Mulliniks. Decent career.
Oh yeah, utility man.
Yep. And our Diamond Kings card in this package, usually a Hall of Famer, is not a Hall of Famer,
Well,
but a very, very very good player, El Presidente Dennis Martinez.
yes, very good player. Love that guy.
So I should have said one Hall of Famer, but I didn't. I said three because I am what is known as stupid.
No, you're all or nothing. Every time we do trivia, you put it all on the line. You pressure me at the end. I always play conservative.
I will gamble if it's not my money, but yeah, when it's actual real money, I nope. I don't play poker. I don't play slots. I don't do any of that stuff. So afraid I'm gonna lose a dime. So you can just call me Ebenezer. Well, JJ, I'm really excited about next week because we have a player for the Belleville Stags, which is one of those old-timey barehanded baseball teams that plays in a league. And Brent Kohlenberger is going to come here and he's going to talk about how he got into it, the nuances of the league and stuff of that nature. So that's going to be a very fun interview. And also this week, the Cubs will not sign anybody of note because we just haven't done that we've had 1 week where we signed Imanaga and that was it. And nothing much has happened. So, but anyway, remember, guess the Cubby, this guy right behind me, and we will see you all next week.
Take care.